Hey everyone, welcome to episode 30 of the Mid-Geek Crisis. My name is Joe.
Cautious, Pedro Online. Wait a minute. It's Pedro, Cautious Online.
Pedro, Cautious Online. And the Afroman, of course. Guys, we're 30 episodes in. Woo!
That's right, 3-0.
Ooh, three. Whether it's old enough.
It's a good year, a fine year. When you hit 30, it was great. 30 episodes, very exciting. I didn't think we'd last this long. I would have put money against us, but I'm actually enjoying it. So there we go.
Woo! Yeah, guys, so we're going to jump right in. We were talking about this before the show, kind of what we've been doing lately, and we're just kind of reminiscing about some things. We haven't been playing as many video games as probably want to, but then again, that's okay because there's not many. Okay, I'm lying. There's tons of things out, but it's more along the lines of what you want to play.
Do you know what I'm playing right now? Minecraft. My workload has gone up real high. I don't feel like I want to. I don't want to put in the thought process. My buddies who are playing Division 2, which I'm very much enjoying, we're playing it on Sundays, and I don't want to level up too fast, so I'm staying right at their level if I only play Sundays. So I put on Minecraft, and I just zone out for an hour, digging tunnels, building walls, hanging out with villagers. The Xbox One had this huge update that added pillagers, different villager jobs. So now you can sort of micromanage a village, and also there's evil villagers that you got to deal with. So I don't know. It was fun, just playing a little discovery game where I could build and manage my inventory and stuff.
So and again, I saw when this update went live, and I read a little bit
back
on it.
Back in April, I want to say.
Yeah. So I've got some questions here. So does that mean when you jump in, are you automatically the leader of this village as soon as you find it, or how does it work? So you drop in a world, right?
You drop in a world.
You start. You build your starter. You build up, and then you go and travel. And
you get your economy up. Yep. You go traveling. Hopefully, you find a horse, and you can tame horses now, which is pretty exciting. So you can, if you find a saddle, you can ride the horse, which is cool.
Or you can craft one. I'm guessing.
I don't think you can craft a saddle. It's like a treasure to find in ruins or deep below ground. You can't.
Oh, no way, huh?
I don't know what the recipe is. Maybe on the PC versions you could, but in the Xbox you can't. But yeah, so you find a village and you have to trade with them to build up your reputation in the village. So villagers
You're right.
find.
Yeah. It can't be made. Minecraft, a saddle is an item that you cannot make with a crafting table or furnish.
You can find it pretty fast.
Find or gather this item in game.
Yeah, so usually you find them because now villages have leather workers, so you'll find them at the leather workers, and you can either trade for them or you can rob it out of their chest, Zelda style. So there's all sorts of things in like encountering a village is like going into a village in a role playing game, right? Except they don't really give you quests; they have items they want to trade for, and they'll give you gems, and you can use those gems to trade for other things. It's just another way to enjoy the game.
They've added RPG elements to the game. Where
but
there is no story.
You create yourself, yeah.
Right. Yourself. So bare minimum RPG elements.
I found 2 villages, and one village was growing potatoes, the other one's growing wheat. So you can even set up a trade caravan going between the two on your own, where you're like, I'm just gonna ship these potatoes to these guys and ship this wheat to those guys. It's actually better if you wind up just making a potato farm in the village that wants potatoes, but it's you can do whatever you want. It's Minecraft, right?
So you can set that up railroad it across, or
yeah. Wow. And there's hoppers now where so there's devices now when the cart appears, you can have the inventory just suck out into a treasure chest. That way when you get there, it's already there. The train can come right back. It's nutty.
And that's your cup of tea. I know you like the managing stuff. I think at PAX, one of the games that you sat down and played was what is it, Titans of Industry?
Yeah, those were fun games. Minecraft doesn't have that deep of an economy game, which I do love economy games.
You do.
But I just, like I said, I just zone out, man. I found one village, and I dug a river around it, and then built a bridge so the village was protected from zombies. I just sort of and then I went exploring for another village, and then I found it, and now I'm chopping down all the trees in that village and building a wooden wall around it. So basically, I just travel from village to village, building defenses around it just for the heck of it. I like building little castles and forts. It's fun. So, and it's, the most important part is that it's super duper relaxing, right? There's no stress. There's no pain. It's super easy to play.
Yeah, you can turn the threat level down too.
I've played it long enough that I could play it on hard without even worrying about it. I go to bed when night hits and I'm done. And then exploring is always fun. I've died once so far in the game, and it was a very traumatic death. So there you go. Good fun. Lost a lot of stuff.
Well, in all fairness, it kind of talks about what we have been playing. We've been playing more tabletop and more just role-playing tabletop games in general. And I guess Minecraft is still kind of scratching that itch because they gave you just enough to be it's kind of like tabletop light without, I don't know how to describe it. It gives you just bare minimum quest requirements so that you can kind of run with the ideas.
You can just run not. Whatever ideas are going in your head, you can sort of play it out. That's exactly right. So that's only been like 3 hours a week, give or take, which is a lot. I won't lie, but like it's like 40 minutes here, 45 minutes there, and then I just read or I just.
Well, work has been so busy. I mean, you and I both have been. My butt, yeah, we've been busy. I came back from Syracuse and had to catch up. So this past week was literally a catch-up week. It's funny, you miss a couple of days of work, and a couple of days of work turns into like a whole week of catch-up, which makes no sense to me because I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I don't know. It's always weird. But that said, we played D&D at your place, and you didn't get to play this Sunday because there was a player that was busy that had something come up.
Rescheduling, so we had to postpone our finale, which is
I'm excited to see pictures and all of that of the finale. So
I tore down my big elaborate setup, so now we only have the throne room.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a board game night on Thursday with some folks playing some board games. So,
what'd you play?
We played Colt Express. Very good cowboy game, the programming cowboy game.
Love that game.
Good, simple. I really recommend it to everyone who want to try board games because it's easy to teach. It's easy to learn. Once you play the first round, everybody gets it.
Right, and that's I guess the best part about that game is as soon as you kick it off, it's confusing at first, but as soon as they see how it works, there's that moment of like, oh, and then the second.
And then they're all laughing as they punch gems and sacks.
They like kick the loot across and all that kind of stuff. Punch midair.
Yeah, that's right. But we did. I mean, speaking of D&D, right? We did have this weekend the D&D live event, the D&D live, where
that's right. That was hosted by Chris Perkins, right?
Well, a lot of folks. But Chris Perkins was one of the main guest stars. Matthew Mercer was there. TJ Storm, right? All the famous celebrity DMs and things. TJ Storm, did I say his name right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So all the famous DMs and celebrities.
And I'm gonna hold back a bit. That's such a weird thing
to say. I know it's very odd in this day and age.
It's so weird this day and age that we're talking about.
But they are
celebrity DMs, and yet you're right. You go on their like YouTube channels and whatnot. They've got millions of followers.
Oh, your man, what's his name? Joe Mangiano.
He was on there.
He was there too.
Jerry was there too.
Yeah, Jerry was there from Penny Arcade. So, like, again, all the
they had a whole strip on that. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
Joe Mangiano. Mangileno?
Whatever.
He was on there. That was pretty hilarious.
I always think of it as Johnny D&D. That's what I think of him as. He would probably maybe be a little insulted. I don't know. But Joe Mangiano. Anyway, they did some announcements and some neat things are coming away. I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if you saw, but they're releasing a new Essentials kit for a new starter kit. So I think the old one is still out there. They released a Stranger Things starter kit, and now they're releasing this new one it's in the same area, actually. It takes place in Phandalin as well, right? And it looks like a really
it takes place in Phandalin as well, so the same starter village?
Same area. It just has a whole new set of adventures in the area. Actually, Chris Perkins, who was talking about it, said that you can use it
mix and match, continue the adventures, however you want to do it, because it's sort of like quests are everywhere around, and there's quest givers and things like that. It's got maps, it's got books. It's out right now?
No, it comes out. Here's the thing I wanted to talk. It comes out. It's a Target exclusive in June. And then it comes out for everyone else in September, right? Now, like,
I know.
I'm old. I'm old enough to remember when Dungeons and Dragons was on the shelves at Toys R Us. Like, I'm old enough to remember it barely, and I remember the disappointment when it started to disappear.
Right, because it was like there was the backlash, there was the the whole like, oh, it's satanic, this and that, and parents.
And now Toys R Us is out of business.
Toys R Us is out of business. Now Target, the pinnacle cornerstone of suburbia, big box, because Walmart is not a pinnacle.
Oh, it's Target.
It's Target, right. You can't go in there without dropping a hundy.
You can't go in there without stopping by the board games and toy section, because that's the Toys R Us of our youth.
It is the Toys. That we'll talk about that after this. But that's funny that you mentioned that, because I've noticed that they've really picked up the slack. They've been like, there is no more Toys R Us. So let's make this toy aisle bigger, better, bolder, and they have done that. They've got big end caps. Big. My Toys R Us has events on the weekends for like toy demos and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. You're a Target.
My Target, not Toys R Us, but
See, you just called it a Toys R Us.
It's weird. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's got Lego sets for days. They've got clearly delineated sections of hobbies. So like one aisle is Transformers and Power Rangers and TNT.
Now is this? Would you say that this is because Hasbro really took, like when Hasbro bought when Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast, and it became a big thing, they were able to drop their own license on it, which is a lot of their
So I don't know. It's hard to say like what chicken laid which egg, right? It's hard to know what came first. But really, I think though, like there's two or three movements that are occurring. The popularity of board games and D&D have definitely risen steadily. I mean, Barnes & Noble has a huge board game section now, right?
Yeah.
So I think those two things.
Although they always had it. Like they were one of the places that you could go locally into. Like I remember buying my 3.5 or 3.0 books there, because you can, like, if you didn't go to Barnes & Noble, pay full cover price for them.
You went there and it was like science fiction, fantasy, and then there was like a comic book aisle, and then there was like one shelf on the bottom where you're like, oh look, D&D, right next to the the game guides, right? Like World of Warcraft art guides and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where they were.
Yeah. So and now they have an end cap shelf, right next to the X-wing and Fantasy Flight game section, right next to the board games, and then Target. It's gotten so amazing that Target. Now, I've worked in the industry that serves Target before, and they're savvy about what they get exclusives for, right? So
yeah, Target is boutique-y when they want to be. They're not
right.
They're not the Walmart of the world. Yeah, they are more. I mean, that's why I say you can't go into Target without spending $100, because things are more. They are more expensive there. They're not a discount store. They are discounted sometimes through sales, but they're higher end.
And the Target audience are, I don't want to say people who think of themselves as too cool for Walmart. I don't know. Their target audience are folks who have a little bit more money, obviously, but also wouldn't. I don't know. Like they're 40-year-old hipsters,
right?
They're our age. They want to go in there and they want to look at.
They've got a little bit of hipster yuppie, like a little bit of both,
hipster yuppie,
which is okay.
That's a good target audience. Why not? If you can capture them, they're the types that used to go to JCPenney and Toys R Us and Best Buy to get their things. Now they just go to Target. Right now we go and buy our shit.
Or Amazon. And
or Amazon.
Target, I will say Target has been one of those brick and mortar stores that have adapted a bit to the online.
They've
been better. Their price match. I've had my issues with their price matching, but but all in all, they are finding a way to make. Example, this is exclusive to them, which means that you can't go to Amazon to buy it.
For 6 months, for a 6-month exclusive, so that I have to go to Target to buy my D&D set. And of course, like you say, I'm going to go in there for the $25 D&D set, and I'm going to walk out with $75 worth of other Target stuff. Like
you're going to buy a couple groceries, maybe a T-shirt or two, something for the kid. Yeah,
it's crazy. So I'm already writing the Target shopping list for June. It's a really cool starter set. It's amazing. It's got everything you need to kick it off. It's got guides and everything. One interesting thing, it has a rule set for playing 2-player D&D. So the adventure can be modified in it so that you can introduce, and Chris specifically said like your little brother or little sister to it, but I think their thought is a dad or a mom can introduce it to their child. Right, I think it's more like you could run it for your kid.
So this is right. So this is 2-player D&D, including the DM being one of the players.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not 3-player, 1 DM, 2 players. It's me playing and DMing for my kid.
You DMing, and they added sidekick cards or partner cards. I don't remember what they call it, but the solo player gets this other hero that they can use like a ability, and one, it's like a wizard, a fighter, or a rogue, and you get this bonus character. So now, even though you might be a wizard, you at least have a tank with you, or if you're a fighter, you might want to bring the rogue with you, right? So like you can sort of play with your sidekicks in that way. And I'm excited for that rule set in general. It seems pretty cool. Lastly, and this is a small thing. It's a small thing, but it's so good. The starter set comes with 2 D20s instead of just one, right? They usually come with one of each die. Now it's 2 D20s. And why does it have 2 D20s?
Well, advantage and disadvantage is the big thing.
That's exactly what the audience shouted at Chris Perkins. They're like, yay! Right? Because it was frustrating getting the starter set and you only got 1 D20 and you always had to roll that D20 twice. Now you can roll them both at the same time.
Yeah, that was the big point of 5e. Like,
yeah, but the first starter set didn't have that extra die. They're throwing more money into the system. It has maps, full color poster size maps inside of it, like the Fantasy Flight one. While the original one didn't, right? I had to print out copies of maps.
Right, like the Phandalin map, you'd have to rely on.
There's a poster map of that town. You can flip it over, and there's Phandalin. I know, you put it up on the wall, put it on the table. It's a pretty cool set. Oh, so I'm excited for that. I'm also excited for everyone to be picking it up at Target, right? Like, it's going to probably be in the board game section. They're probably going to put in a big end cap to really display it. This is an exclusive.
I got to go pick up the Stranger Things one just for the sake of picking it up as well.
That's on Amazon, right? You can pick that up on Amazon. I think so.
You
could probably pick it up anywhere. On top of that, the other major release. I didn't listen to the whole weekend. I just listened to the release show. The other major release, for the fans, Rick and Morty. So, there was a Rick and Morty comic book, right? Rick and Morty versus D&D. A number 2 comic book is coming out, Rick and Morty versus D&D 2, which looks as fun as Rick and Morty is. And they're releasing, and this is the weird part to me, they're releasing a campaign book set in the universe, if I'm saying this right, where Rick and Morty are playing D&D. So, like, the GM is actually supposed to be Rick. No, you're supposed to be a GM using a rule book written by Rick. So, like, Rick, I don't know. It's confusing. But it breaks a lot of the rules of D&D. So they took this opportunity to throw everything that they wanted, every crazy idea they ever wanted to do in D&D, to sort of throw into this rule book. It looks exciting. Something for the fans. I don't know how much of a fan I am of Rick and Morty.
I think
my D&D, it's not quite
like in your D&D or as a whole.
As a whole, it's not quite chocolate and peanut butter, but it is like a cool thing to put together. And that looks pretty neat. So a lot of cool stuff from D&D. That was a big show. I don't know if you saw their set design. Dwarven Forge had a beautiful hellscape display with sort of sneak previews at their Kickstarter coming up.
This was at the D&D event?
Yeah.
Wait. Time out. So Dwarven Forge was on the stage.
On stage.
With
their
D&D.
Terrain. Their terrain.
On the D&D. That's huge, man.
Well, Matthew Mercer and Chris Perkins have been running adventures with Dwarven Forge on the table for a while now.
Right. But, I mean, that's 2 celebrity DMs. But for it to be acknowledged and put on stage alongside a sanctioned event done by
front and center, man. So the table, all the talking heads are here, and the table is all in front of it on display as the Dwarven Forge with their brand name right up in front. It was almost like D&D brought to you by Dwarven Forge.
Right, which is huge. So shout out to those guys, which are fantastic individuals, which we finally got to meet in person at.
Here's the interesting part, right? So I don't want to be messy, right? But I think they have it in because their Kickstarter this summer that they're coming out with is a hellscape. So it's lava fuel. So infernal terrain, demon infested terrains. The new D&D campaign book coming out at the end of the year is going to hell. So they're going to go fight demons in hell. That's the new campaign book. And I'm like,
wow.
And this one,
but nothing has been really announced and saying that one is equal to the other.
Well, they both Dwarven Forge has announced what their new Kickstarter is going to be, and D&D just announced that new campaign book coming out towards the end of the year. So I think,
but neither one of them said, "Hey, you could play with this terrain,"
of
or
course
"Hey,
not. No, it's not that close. But when your D&D live event has Dwarven Forge terrain with the demons all over it, you can't help. I mean, you have to make the connection. And this Kickstarter this year is they're trying out a small format Kickstarter.
Is it live?
Not yet. I think it's June. End of June is what they're teasing. But it's like a small format Kickstarter in that, like, instead of being the huge ones where, like, in order to get all the pieces, you're gonna have to spend a fortune. This one, I get the impression this one's like you drop $700 and you've got a pretty good lava terrain set, and it'll come to you faster so that it's ready for your Hell campaign when the D&D book comes out. Which I'm like, that's how you make the money, guys. You tie it into your clientele. You have the terrain ready for them to play when the new adventure book comes out. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think Stefan Picorni was up on the stage at one point. I remember reading that he was one of the guest stars. So, yeah.
That's big for those guys,
Neil
man.
was definitely there. Yeah,
I mean, huge. That's big. That's that's stamp of approval from Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast.
I just hope they survive the growing pains, man, because things like that will make a small business be out of stock for months on end, and people will never come back.
Right. Someone else will come in and swoop the magic away from them and say, "Hey, look, guys, we've got this less, subpar but closer, and we have it now in stock that we printed in China." You're gonna get it. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's exactly right. It'll be cheap plastic and it'll break easy, and
it won't be made of dwarvenite.
Hey man, don't knock it. You got to play on it, and it's
awesome. I'm not knocking it at all. That stuff is amazing. I cannot. So
it's definitely not the way I played D&D growing up.
No, it's not. Which is, I mean, again, they're phenomenal. They're nice guys. They're a good company. They're very, very, very approachable. They retweeted us a couple times. We've talked to them at
they're great. I love them. I love them to death.
So yeah, I bug
them all the time online.
More praise to them for sure. So guys, if you're interested, go take a look at dwarvenforge.com. Follow them. Follow their news to hit up that what is it? Descent into Doom, I think is what it's going to be called, right?
That's the new. I think that's the new adventure, and their terrain's like Hellscape because there's like cross. Right, they can't do it officially, right? Because they're not.
Because they're not D&D. But I mean, totally. Yeah.
But so it's a strong coincidence in my mind when one company puts out Hell terrain and the other company is like, "Oh, here's our Hell adventure." Yeah, and that's good. Good for them. That's exactly how it should be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't started up my campaign yet. It's getting there. This as soon as work slows down a little bit for me, I might jump back on. And I don't know what I'm going to do yet, man. Now with this new Essentials, maybe I'll kick it off there. I don't know yet.
Well, I mean, you got a trip to Target in your future at the very least, right?
Well, yeah, $15.99 for that right now, guys. If you want to take a look at it, it's $15.99 for the Dungeons and Dragons starter set for the Stranger Things on Amazon.
Oh, that's cheap. That's good.
So it's been added to my cart. Haven't checked out or anything, but for $50, that ain't bad for what you get. It's that
is not bad at all.
Yeah. Hunt for the Thessal Hydra.
That's good.
So, yeah. So what else? So guys, talking about retro and old and feeling old, especially with 30 episodes down, I want to talk about this little story here that my friend Zero is very passionate about when it came out. Was the World of Warcraft classic scenario.
Kids these days.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the D&D Classic debacle before this. There was a couple guys that decided to run
World of Warcraft Classic, by the way.
Yeah, World of Warcraft Classic.
You said D&D Classic.
World of Warcraft Classic. Right. A couple of guys decided to make these classic servers that Blizzard kept pulling down over and over and over again. And cease and desist and whatever, and the fans were like, "Hey, we want it. And sure enough, they released it. So the news story for today, or the news story for this week, was that the beta players are reporting bugs but the developers are like, that's not a bug, it's a feature, which is kind of an interesting way of putting things, I guess. Is you go back and relaunch code that had bugs in it, and you don't fix those bugs because those are part of the classic experience. What do you think about that?
So,
like this is it's weird.
I love it. I love it so much. I love to like be careful what you wish for message in this, where and also the like nostalgia glasses that comes on when you're like, oh, it was so much better before they added blood elves. Oh, it was so much better before the Lich King, right? These nostalgia glasses to the days of old, and they forget, right? So they come on and they start reporting these bugs. I mean, some of these bugs are hilarious. Okay, so like creature respawn rates are much slower than in Battle for Azeroth. Like feared players and NPCs run fast, right? I guess they run slow now in the new version, so you can catch up to them. And I remember them going fast. Here's one that I love. Quest objectives and points of interest are not tracked on the map or mini-map.
Oh my God.
2004, man, you had to know where everything was. You knew where the auction house was. You knew where your guild master was. Or your
quest objectives. I remember you had to install third-party like add-ons to WoW, so that it would like mod your map and it would take a database of points. You know, so like if you were on a quest, you'd mark it that you were working on this quest, and it would drop a marker on your mini map.
That's exactly right.
Right. So, but it wasn't in game. Naturally, you had to install them. I can't even remember what they were called. They were called like all sorts of different like add-ons and whatnot.
People
forget. I'm sure they're still being used now, but
and then World of Warcraft. I mean, Blizzard eventually took that mod and made it part of the game, and
that's how it works, right? They look at the modders, see what people are using, and then they add it as a feature.
And then you play the old game, and you're like, oh wait, available quests don't display as exclamation points on the minimap. You actually have to be playing the game and looking around for these quests.
Well, you have to remember where things were, or if it's your first time playing, you have to go and explore, and then run into that spot. Like, oh, this is where I do that quest.
Yep, which talks about game design, right? So people remember these moments
through nostalgia glasses.
The nostalgia glasses, and also I think like it's where that get good culture comes from. Where you're like, just find it yourself, right? You got that sort of I pulled myself up on my, and now a lot of now everyone was like everything's spoon fed. But then we go back and they re-release it, and everyone's like, wait, I can't find where I'm supposed to go, and blah blah blah. So I mean like the tiers, they're delicious, right? Like I'm just like, oh guys, this is so good. But I don't play World of Warcraft anymore. Though I guess if I logged into World of Warcraft Classic, I'd remember how to play, right? Because I dropped out soon after the Lich King got released.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned this, and this is gonna touch base a little bit on what I want to talk about. But I'm gonna try to pull up my quote here. So one of the things that's impressive about games that are online, something that console gamers never really got until just now, like DLC or patches. Like the game that came in the box completed was the game that you got. There was no way to game-breaking bugs were features. If you go back and look, I mean, God, there were moments in certain games that you could cheese the game a bit because things were broken. Like again, one of my favorite ones is just the one I can think off the top of my head is Double Dragon NES. The second boss was you climb a tower, you go up the stairs, and then he'd come out, purple hair dude, kind of a Bruce Lee looking guy would come out, and then if you immediately, as soon as he spawned, you went down the stairs until he was off the screen, he would die, and then you'd move on to the next map. So that would be a bug. If a developer saw that now in their game, they would patch it. They'd remove it, and that wouldn't be in your version of the game. And there were versions of games before. So now classic gamers, retro gamers will go and look at carts, when they're dumps or ROMs, and you'll see version 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, like Zelda, or big games that had shelf life that were produced multiple times, did have certain fixes that were not available in the version 1.0 or whatever. And like speedrunners, for example, will play Ocarina of Time version 1.0 version versus 1.1, 1.2 because they know that bugs are broken that allows them to like supersede or pass or skip or whatever. So that being said, a game like World of Warcraft Classic is a game that we're playing nostalgia. Like, where is the line? Like, where is the line that classic gamers? I'm a retro gamer. I love it. But where is that line where where it turns from like feature to bitching? Like, I'm gonna bitch about this feature, but is it just because you want to relive the anger? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, does the nostalgia come full fold? You can't have your cake and you have to have your cake and eat it. So for example, you get this classic version of the game that you bitched and complained about. So now all these broken features, and now you can't complain about brokenness. So do you want to relive all of it? Do you just want to go back and relive the dev so that, oh, this is broken, and you want them to fix it in the same timeline? So when the classic version is released, 3 months from now, it's version Z 1.0, and then every few months it goes up a version like it went up. And so are you just playing your past all over again? And then at what point will someone want to play the classic version 1.0? Like, can you toggle? Can you go, no, you know what? It's been a year since classic version come out. I want to play it in its original form. No, it's too late. It's already been patched.
Yeah, I don't. You know
what I'm saying? Know. Like, at some point in time, even the classic version has to be patched.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think at what point is it no longer the original game and it's become something new is the question, right? So
right.
Is there an opinion amongst retro gamers as to at what point a retro game is no longer?
So retro gamers have a different form, because we're not people that play cartridge games and all that. We don't have the luxury of ever having patches, and if you did, you'd play different versions, and the versions that you would get were very few and far between. The only thing you would ever get was like, oh, you're gonna play what is it, greatest hits version versus the regular version. The like Final Fantasy VII, the black box version versus the greatest hits version that came out for 1999 later on, and those versions were essentially different versions, 1.1 versus 1.2. But the changes were so minute because you really couldn't break the game back in the day. There was no way to go, let's fix it and then break it again, because you can't repatch those discs.
So I don't know. I think maybe, and this is just me having played World of Warcraft for probably about 6 years, maybe 7 years before I dropped out. World of Warcraft community players just love bitching about the game. I just don't.
So that's what I'm saying. I think they want all of it.
Yeah, I think it was easy to say that the basic game was the best when in fact it wasn't. Or it wasn't the best possible version. I'm sure they want the bugs fixed, but they don't want the features changed. But the fact that they're identifying features as bugs tells me that they didn't really remember what they remembered. What they remembered probably was being max level and picking on the noobs, because it was much easier to pick on the noobs in the original World of Warcraft Classic than it was on the...
Sure. There was all sorts of griefing and whatnot.
There was a lot of elitism, a lot of feeling of elitism.
I don't know why you want to play that version of the game. Like...
I can understand you wanting to play
maybe a timeline. Like, I totally get story. So this is a game that's got a long story. Mm-hmm. You want to play before Burning Crusade. I get that, but
before they dropped 40-person raids, because now I think they're 10-person raids. It was supposed to be 40.
Leave me with the game completely the way it is now. I don't know. I don't know why. Like,
I don't know. The game has definitely changed a lot. I think even some of the old instances are no longer around. Like, the Blizzard just stopped patching them and got rid of them, right? So, I don't know how it works. Like, you can never go back and play Blackwing Lair the way it was originally designed unless you played Classic. And I think they want that retro experience in a way where they want to go back and play Blackwing Classic. But I think in their heads they would go back and play it with all of the advanced tools they have today. They would just play the classic version of it, right? Like sitting down in front of a Nintendo game with a turbo button, maybe. I don't know what the equivalent would be, but
yeah. No. Well, a good example is we've released, Nintendo releases a little classic mod, the little classic, the NES Classic or whatever. You plug it in HDMI, you get it looking crisp and clean on your HDMI screen, and they also added save states. something that you never had before, something that you just
that's right, yeah,
hit the menu button and you back out and it freezes that instance and you can like save on games that never had a save option.
Why would you ever want to play without a save state now that you have save states, right? Like It just makes no sense. I'm not writing down a password. Get out of here with that garbage.
right. So that's funny that all of this came to fruition in the talk that we're talking about right now, because this past weekend I modded a Game Boy Color. I modded a Game Boy Color and I added a backlit screen on a console that never had a backlit screen.
Right, yeah.
The only way to play those games backlit was to drop it into your Game Boy SP or a newer system, which made the screen small. Anyway, I took the original hardware, the original Game Boy Color, and added a backlit screen. And I started. I have a EverDrive, which allows me to just play ROMs of games. So I basically have the entire library on one card. But one of the things that's the advantage of having an EverDrive is being able to play games with patches, being able to patch your own game, like translations of Japanese only games. You patch it with an IPS file and it gives you like English text or whatever.
English text, wow.
And I decided to go looking for some just to see what was interesting, and I found one that I found hilarious yet awesome, which is going to make me replay this game. Link's Awakening on Game Boy is already getting a re-release on the Nintendo Switch this year. But someone did an IPS patch for it. They did a patch called Quality of Life. And one of the things that's really annoying in that game is every time you pick up certain objects, you get text on the screen that says, "You found an acorn." And every time you pick it up, you're like, "You found an acorn." You're like, "Oh, God, okay, yes."
Old school gaming.
So again, one of the changes is no more text when you touch certain objects. Rocks, cracks. So if you touched rocks or cracked rocks, it would say, "This rock looks too heavy for you." Like, why? But I get it, but tell me once and move on. But it did it every time. So again, that might have been something that might have been patched later on. They would be like, "Yeah, you're right. That is annoying." So they fixed that. Guardian Acorns and Pieces of Power are quick pickups, no longer long text interrupting gameplay.
That's fantastic.
No more low health beeping. So when you're low on health for like 3 or whatever, it beeps like constantly. They turn that off. And they also patched the font in the game that was really annoying to read. They made it a better, clear font. I thought that was funny that, here we are.
You're not playing the original.
You're playing the original. No, totally. But it's a way.
Can we talk about quality of life patches? Can we talk about that first?
Yeah, go for it.
So, Division 2. I think it's great. I think the interface is fantastic. One of the interesting decisions they made is your character doesn't bend down to pick up stuff anymore. Like literally,
it just bloop.
You press the button and it goes into your inventory. It creates moments where I barely even know what I'm grabbing, right? I just press X and it boom, it's in my inventory, no problem. On top of that, they did this thing with you played Division 1, right? So there's restock boxes in missions, right, where you will get ammo.
Right. First At the beginning, you get the restock right before you're going to get a big encounter or whatever.
Exactly. It was like a save point almost, except it was just ammo. In the first one, whenever I play with my friends, there was always this race to be the first one there, because if you were the first one there who opened the box,
you get the bigger item.
No, everyone had to wait until you were done getting your and it's only like a couple seconds, but it's still like if I got there and pushed X before you got there and pushed X, your X didn't do anything, and you're like, fuck, and now you have to wait until I'm done. And then they get the loot, and then the next person can cut in front of you. So like it became this little like mini game where we all competed. Now the first person there opens it and the ammo just drops on the ground. So now anyone could just walk by and pick up their ammo and keep moving. So there's no weird, like, awkward pause while everybody gets their
But can you take all the ammo?
Yeah. No, there's no. It's unlimited. It's unlimited ammo box. One use, but everyone gets all the ammo they need. Such a fantastic small thing that allows you to just keep playing without fighting the interface, right?
Right.
Right. It makes the act of getting stuff seamless as opposed to having a message pop up like in Zelda. Compare that to Red Dead Redemption 2, which I've tried like 10 times to get into it, but like I'm literally, the interface is always in your face, getting in your way. Like it's just inventory. It's a different set of buttons. It pops up on the whole screen. It takes like 10 minutes to loot a body. I mean, I don't know how deep in the game you got, but like he leans down, he flips the body over, he rifles through the pockets, and he puts a cigarette pack in his inventory, right? It just takes forever.
So
to do
That's
all these
interesting. You're
things.
talking about that. So would you consider that part of the game?
So it's part of the game, but I don't. I mean, my argument would be
Who
is
wants
that
to keep playing that version of the game? At
it
what
doesn't.
point are you over and done with that?
Well, I guess like from my perspective is what is the design feature is trying to. Is it trying to get me to slow down? What is going to happen is that I'm eventually going to just stop looting bodies because it takes so long, right? It's just same thing with like train cars or looting whole rooms. There's all sorts. You open the cabinet and you pull it out. Like I get, you skin animals and it takes forever. You cook, like literally cooking is like actually cooking, except all you're doing is pressing a button to get through it, right? Like you stir the pot, you grind the spices, right? And I'm just like, why am I doing this? What is the reason behind this design feature, right? Is it to get me to stop playing?
Because they're succeeding in that.
Right, because I haven't been able to get past the interface to actually enjoy the story, which they clearly spent a lot of time writing. Like these characters are deep and extended, and
but you can't get to that.
I can't get past the interface, man. I just don't have the time like I used to dive in. Like Fallout 4 had an inventory problem as well. You spent a lot of time managing your inventory.
And lock picking.
Right, so lock picking, and that was just one thing. Imagine lock picking for everything. That's Red Dead Redemption 2.
Every time you have to go pick a lock, it go into like a mini game. You're like, oh, it breaks. No lock pick. Oh, it breaks. God,
there's fundamentally no reason to have lock picks because eventually you have so many in your hand, you just go through it quick.
What was another game that had the silliness of that? BioShock there was like a hacking thing. Originally, you'd have to hack a box or whatever. You could there was a skip button.
That's great.
No.
Mass Effect had a skip button. Did it?
No, I'm trying to think of Arkham. Is it Arkham Asylum? One of the Arkham.
So Arkham Asylum, I remember playing the very first one, Batman. I think it was Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, Arkham Asylum.
In the first 10-minute sequence, you crawl into a vent and you have to press X to.
There you go. That's exactly what I'm trying to think of. A little bit of it's like every time, like you're Batman.
And I was like,
you would just go rip off the vent.
Or more importantly, I would sit there and I go, well, what if I don't do it? All that happens is that I don't proceed, right? It didn't add anything to the game to make me press X a bunch, like make it a cutscene. I move towards it, I pop it out, right? Which I think Division 2 did, and other games have sort of been like, yeah, cinematically, it makes sense, but making the player press X a bunch of times until what if I press X 5 times and then stop? Nothing happened. Just had to start over. There wasn't any stakes to opening the grate.
Just let me hit it once and go open grate.
And do a little cutscene of Batman being Batman.
What's the advantage? What's the gamification? What was the reason for programming that? It's not loading.
Realism, which is the argument for Red Dead Redemption 2. Realism. That Rockstar was so obsessed with creating a real Western game that they forgot that they were also making a game, I think. And I'm not saying the game is bad. The story is phenomenal. You just always find.
I like that you're saying this because you're almost doing exactly what I feel that most people should do. I think Red Dead Redemption got a pass, right?
Well, it didn't. I mean, it suffered a little bit. I mean, not suffered, but the reviews definitely. But it's a beautiful, gorgeous, voice acted, wonderful, beautiful game.
Gorgeous game, wonderful setting, etc. But I think games that do that kind of stuff where it slows you down, where it's no longer meant for the player that wants to just play a game, it's just meant for someone that wants to dump 50 hours into a game.
And I dumped hundreds of hours into Fallout 4, right? Like,
so I want to, but Fallout 4, you dumped it because you were like building your town, you were doing all sorts. You weren't looting a body. Like if you got 30 minutes a night to play a game, and it took you 10 minutes to loot bodies from the
seconds just wasted looting bodies. Eventually you just stop and bother.
Just like you get so tired of hitting the same button, like you just stop looting them, which means you don't pick up equipment, which means that you don't level or get yourself better. I mean, there are repercussions for not picking it. Just give me an auto loot button.
Just put it in my inventory. I don't pass these days.
Or how about this? You want to write something for it? As your character levels up, because I'm not sure if you level up in the game or not, but as you level up, you get better at identifying what you want and don't want. So, like, you always pick up the important loot.
That's a cool feature, so that you spend the time actually looting, and eventually you just get what you need.
Right.
Right. So that's a design choice, right? I think. So one of the principles of D&D design is that you don't ever design a puzzle, for example, that the players have to complete to proceed, right? So like if you put a locked door in a room and all of the players fail their lock picking, the adventure stops, right?
Right.
So you have to provide a way for them to pass that. So that's a design flaw in Dungeons and Dragons, right? So when the DM has to design the adventure with that in mind, they're like, hey, if they fail their rolls,
right,
I have to make sure there's a way for the adventure to proceed. And the best DMs know this, and you see them when they're streaming. You see them sort of react to the fact that players are failing rolls, and you have to keep the adventure failures fun. You have to figure out how to keep the failure fun. With games, you don't get that opportunity. So if I fail in a Red Dead Redemption task like cooking, there's no. All I've done is waste a bunch of time and not have food at the end of it, right?
Yeah, in fact, resources.
In fact, you can't even fail at it, which is
that's right. Yeah, you can't fail it.
You just have to press all the buttons until you're done. So it doesn't even
there's no benefit to any of it.
And pressing the buttons better doesn't mean you get better food, right? It's
so like an example for the cooking would be Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda. So with that is the gaming aspect of the cooking is mixing the right ingredients. You can have up to 5 ingredients. You pick a mushroom and a protein and whatever, you mix it up, and then he does a cutscene. You go up to the fire, you throw the ingredients, does the little jingle, he shakes it, the food is popping and bopping, and then boop, and it tells you what dish you made, and the dish gives you stats, like it gives you this much health plus bonus or resistance to heat or whatever. And that was the gamification. It was instantaneous. You only hit the button once to cook. It did it automatically. It generated it, did a little jingle, and then boom, you'd get to go.
And you get like a list of things you cooked.
Yeah, and then it goes into your inventory as a piece of food that's already pre-cooked, and you eat it, and then it gives you stats. Like it only give you 3. Or the way you could fail it is if you put bad food in it. Like you pick up bat wings or whatever in the game, and you cook with bat wings and a couple of things, and it makes yucky food, and it even has like pixelated food. Like it's so disgusting. You wonder, it gives you half a heart of food. You might have wasted 5 ingredients, but sometimes you have to do that for quests or whatever. But either way, there was a gamification for the cooking. There was no reason to skip it. As a matter of fact, you can skip the jingle. It starts it and you hit X to skip, and it just shows you what you got.
Perfect. So that's exactly how you want it to be, so that people who enjoyed those contemplative moments of watching Link cook could enjoy it, and people who just needed to get the food and get going to the regular game can do that. Red Dead Redemption doesn't let you do that. So, I mean, the very first cutscene, there's a moment where a wagon wheel, and I knew I was in trouble, the wagon wheel bounces off the wagon during the cutscene, and your character has to jump out and put the wagon wheel back on, and you press X. It's a little like cinematic scene where you have to press X to put the wheel back on and push your shoulder up. I'm sitting there like, what if I fail this? What if I decide not to fix this wagon? Does the story not proceed? And I didn't do it. I actually passed it. But what I've read online is that eventually they just do it automatically. So eventually you succeed, even without. So the DM comes in and unlocks the door, because there's no way for you to proceed past this adventure unless that door's unlocked. Which makes me go back to the thought. It was like, why not just have that been a cutscene of me watching him repair it to sort of show the sort of do it yourself.
Right. So was that a tutorial moment where it's teaching you how to?
So I haven't gotten far enough into the game, but again, what I read online is that that's the only time you ever play that mini game. Like, there's no other moments where
see bad game design.
That's bad game design. And there's a lot of little
mini down on that
inside Red Dead Redemption, and I think Rockstar is often guilty of this, where they become so. I mean, I remember the yoga mini game in Grand Theft Auto 5, right? Like, there's all sorts of mini games in the game that I'm like, who is this for? Who's going to play this game more than once, except to get past the story? And there's no other time you play that mini game, right? It's a goofy mini game you have to play.
I get the joke aspect of it, but didn't we learn as a gaming culture there are a few things that went out of style? Escort missions. People hate them
Thank you, World of Warcraft. I wonder if they're complaining about it in D&D Basic.
They are. Escort missions in general are the worst. They've been hated on for many years, for many types of genre. Any time where the NPC is a character controlled by the computer that's moving around, and you've got enemies, and you've got to like save them, and the freaking NPC gets stuck behind barrels or some crap, and then you like and you're killing everything, but then he's stuck back here, and one enemy's just like ping, 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 dead, and then you're like, you have to redo that whole mission. That crap out of the window. Developers don't do it anymore, or if they do, they've gotten better at it.
They do. Division 2 has one, right? I won't spoil it, but the character you're supposed to save you would think of him as someone who should be helpless, but like you jump in there and it's like, protect this person, and like you shoot the guard that's with him, and you see the character, the computer controlled person you're escorting, pick up a gun, start shooting, and hide in a corner and just start shooting like he defends himself. So I'm like, oh, that's super cinematic. Like, what's going on here? So they figured it out. They're like, no one likes escort, because I was already. No one likes. The minute they were like, protect this person, I was like, oh god, no.
Oh. Well, yeah, escort missions. Another one is quick time events. Like
if done well, I think I'm okay with it.
I guess
overdo it, man.
For the right, like God of War, like the first part 1, part 2, and part 3, the first 3. They were the king of QuickTime events. Like anytime, like hit X now, and like, come on. Like,
so do you remember Shadows of Mordor?
Oh, yeah.
So that one was great, right? You play the whole game, and the very final fight, I swear to God, is a QuickTime event. Like, you play the whole game, you become this like
god.
This godlike just destroyer of orcs. Like, there was points in which I was killing 30 or 40 orcs in a row. Like, I actually got sick of killing orcs, which is not something I'm ready to admit, right? Like, I love killing orcs.
Love killing orcs.
Like,
they're like the Nazis of the sci-fi world. Sorry, orc lovers.
You get into this like perfect. It's almost like Arkham Asylum when you get into this perfect fighting rhythm, and Batman's there, and there are 10 thugs.
You're like X,
grapple, like, block, twist, broken neck, twist, broken arm, and same thing with this game. And you get to the final boss, and it's like a 3-step QuickTime event that you've never played a QuickTime event before. The game has never required a QuickTime event. And all of a sudden, the final fight, the culmination of my fighting skills.
Here we go. We get to finally do it, and then you don't get to use any of it.
And I was like, I lost it the first time out because I was like, wait, what am I supposed to do here? What's going on? It's like, quick time fight, no!
What's funny about that is you knew games like God of War knew what they were doing by the end, by part 3. The final, no spoilers to anybody. I mean, you can go up online and look at it. The final joke to it all is it's Kratos. He's beating up Zeus,
right?
Beating up Zeus, and there's a button where you like punch Zeus, and you're like boom, 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 and you just keep punching. The game never tells you to stop. So you can literally keep doing it for like 15, 20 minutes, and you're just like turning his face and turning Zeus' face into like bloody mush because you're just like
punch.
And it's a joke, and I think you unlock an achievement after doing it a certain amount of times. Same thing. Deadpool, the Deadpool game, has a moment where Wolverine is like passed out or whatever, and Deadpool walks up to him, and you're like, press X to wake up Logan. And you do it, and you slap Logan, and he makes a funny joke, and then he's like, "This is for Hugh Jackman. This is for this. This is for that."
And it just goes on forever,
and you can keep doing it, and then eventually you unlock an achievement. But which is funny. But I'm just saying, like games like they know that it's pointless. It's time wasting.
Yeah. Press X to proceed. That's always been my
all of these skills in the game, and then
was it Call of Duty where press X to pay respects?
Press F to pay respects.
To pay respects.
Respects, press F. So like
what happens if you don't press it?
Then you don't show respect.
Don't show respect.
You're at a funeral of like, you're supposed to make it it's a moment of like grief or whatever. It's at a funeral,
and it comes up on the screen.
Press F to pay your respects. I'm like, oh.
I was already paying my respects emotionally watching the cutscene, but okay, I'll press F.
Right. If I don't press F, what? The stops, it pauses. I mean, what happens? You don't feel respect.
And I think gamers like that was such a ludicrous thing that it became like a meme.
Yeah, to me.
It's a meme.
So yeah, I mean, again, gaming in general is weird. When it comes down to old features,
it's an interesting design discussion, right? So I think Rockstar needs to go back and take a look at what was important to them in their Red Dead Redemption design, and I think they focus too much on realism. Like I get like you want to show your character flipping a body and rifling through its pockets to represent looting. That's a really realistic image in a game where they had a horse testicle.
But engine, have other games not done this?
They have a horse testicle engine,
right?
Right. But is it worth having that in 100
the body? Go through the macro of doing it, and then show you a box of inventory. Why do I have to go through the whole scenario of flipping the body over and doing all that?
Because they could do it. Because they could the technology has gotten to the point where you can almost participate in the whole movie could be a QuickTime event, and there are parts of Red Dead Redemption that feel that way, and they're gorgeously designed all the way through. But I need to go back.
I don't have the time.
I need to take off 3 days just where I can dump
bodies
30 hours into it. Yeah. This way I get used to the controls. I still haven't gotten used to the controls. I fought 3 major battles, and every time at the end of each one I was like, oh, right, I could do Deadeye. Every time I was like, oh, I have this ability. That would be cool. Never use it because I couldn't remember how to use it. So anyway, design choices. And I think D&D has done the right design choices with 5th edition. Everyone can complain. I know edition wars, but the reason why D&D is so popular now is because 5th edition. It's not because they moved. It's not because of Pathfinder and their 3.5. It's because 5th edition streamlined the game and made it fun again. And also, folks, because even if Matthew Mercer was doing an amazing thing with whatever he plays, which is not D&D, I don't think it would be as popular unless people could buy it and still play it, right? So Matthew Mercer can evangelize. Chris Perkins can evangelize. It can be rock stars. But they wouldn't be if people weren't playing the game or wanting to play the game. So Anyway, design choices. Very different design choices, which loops back into the World of Warcraft. They made a lot of design choices that improved the game, but people thought it was ruining it. And here they are, waiting for mobs to spawn.
So as we get older,
the quiz games, yeah,
we see new things get improved upon. We can talk about some things that were kind of the start of everything. And when it comes down to geekdom and the beginning of a whole new level of geek. And 20 years ago, Phantom Menace, The Matrix came out.
So the start of the sci-fi movement, maybe? Are they the grandfathers of the new world?
The Phantom Menace was the beginning of the modern Star Wars
era.
And it didn't go as planned. I mean, maybe it did and it didn't. I mean, it's a success. It was a success.
Resounding success. People still made millions and billions of dollars over it.
Right. Pepsi made tons of money on that. I know that. God, I still saw they were still standees at my dad's old convenience store for Phantom Menace.
The cans.
Yeah, the cans.
They went whole hog on Phantom Menace.
A whole hog on that. And then The Matrix. So 2 very different movies. One coming off the backs of Titans, that is the Star Wars universe, and The Matrix, a never heard of sci-fi original, not sci-fi as the genre, but science fiction original story that brought a whole new age of techno action. It was one of the first movies with bullet time, if not the first movie with bullet time. I remember the big, the camera setups and whatnot. And that was kind of the big.
I remember the sort of discussion on the big camera setups. Yeah, it was a very difficult show. Keanu Reeves sort of, I don't want to say cemented, let's say, because he was already an action star at that point, but sort of cemented his role as an action star.
Yeah. I mean,
and we all love him now in John Wick, right? So it's fine. But yeah, 20 years, Phantom Menace, man. There's a lot of retrospectives being written out there on looking back.
Yeah, we can do a whole episode
maybe on Star Wars. It isn't as bad as we all remembered. Maybe it was too hyped.
It was too hyped.
It was too hyped, and I think that's what's happening with everything now. Everything's too hyped.
Right. It was a product of its own.
Right? The Game of Thrones finale, that feeling was too hyped. We've all been disappointed by a series finale, people. We've all been disappointed by it, right? So I appreciate everyone being like, "Hey, remember The Sopranos? We didn't like that ending either." Hey,
no,
Dexter, we didn't love the ending of that either.
Talk about Sopranos, but then you go back and look at the lists of great endings, and people say The Sopranos is a great ending.
Because the community's torn. The loud people are the ones who complain the loudest. That's really right. I can't talk yet. I haven't seen it, but I've had it spoiled, ridiculously spoiled. Even though I was trying my best to avoid the spoilers.
What, the Game of Thrones ending?
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. It's impossible. Like New York Times is all like.
But I watched that one.
You watched the finale? What'd you think?
It's because I was sick and tired of Game of Thrones. After the Red Wedding, everyone jumped on it and was like, "This is the greatest thing ever on TV." And I was like, "Okay, that's fair." And then the new season came out, and everyone was jumping on it. And I'm trying to be hipster about it, like oh my god, everyone was on it. That's not it. I was too busy, and everyone was just like all over it. And then at the same time, I was tired of the rape and the whatever. It was a messy show that I just
it was a very messy show.
And so that said, from then on, after the Red Wedding, all I did was read synopsis. Every time a new episode would air, I'd go online and I'd read what happened, like full-on synopsis.
Staying on top of it.
So I did that this entire season. I knew who died. I knew the details of every episode. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch the end of it. And you know what, man? I'm going to say this, and it's controversial, and people might say otherwise, but I didn't hate the ending. It was exactly what I can't imagine these characters, maybe because I didn't watch the entire season and saw these characters go into like madness as they were written. 6 episodes, they start at the beginning of the season to 6 episodes later, they're like completely different characters. But from my understanding is these 6 episodes were lots of time passed between each episode. I mean, you had characters in like the North and then on one scene, and then they were in King's Landing the next scene.
No one thinks about that. Everything moves at the speed of plot, right? So.
Right, but what I'm saying is we had whole seasons dedicated to just like travel.
Yeah.
Like there was a whole season with Arya and the Hound traveling. Totally whole season. But here we had 6 episodes of characters jumping around the map like fast travel.
Yeah, and each episode should have been its own season almost.
Right. That's how much, but people aren't seeing that, so they just see the fact that, oh, here's a character that I loved written one way.
They're now calling all these things plot holes. I love it.
Yeah, but no, it's you had 6 episodes to give us
the harvest of tears.
Yeah, it's great. I honestly can't imagine them without spoiling anything for anybody. I can't imagine any of these characters ending a different way. I think they were all written exactly the way the end point was exactly where every character would have ended up anyway. How they got there, you're unhappy because you got this story in only 6 episodes. You wanted 22 episodes to get there.
To which I say, go read the books.
Go read the books.
If they ever come out.
Right?
So, it will. George R.R. Martin is swimming in blow money, right? He doesn't care.
God, so much woman. His little captain's hat. He's like sailing a ship of cocaine, What's hilarious is he came out today. I saw the article and I got to link it. I forgot to put that was one of the ones I was going to talk about. Is he said the books will end different than the show.
That's weird.
Yeah. Let me see.
And he's probably only saying that because people reacted poorly to the ending. This had to have been his ending. He just was taking too long to get there.
Yeah. CNN 6 hours ago. George R.R. Martin sort of reveals whether the end of his Game of Thrones book will match the show. He says, "Winter is coming. I told you long ago, and so it is." Martin wrote, "The winds of winter is very late. I know, but it will be done. I won't say when. I've tried that before, only to burn you all and jinx myself. But I will finish it, and will come a dream of spring. For the record, the show is long clips, blah, blah, blah." He talked about, and how will it end? I hear people asking, the same ending as the show? Different? Well, yes and no, and yes and no, and yes and no, and yes.
All right,
Joe. So he's basically saying, meh, I'll make it up as I go. It's not written. I am going to use you guys as guinea pigs and write a better ending to a book that I had already had an ending to, but then see the reaction that you guys gave me and change it.
Here's the thing that I think that would change. Let's see. We're recording this. Are we outside the 72-hour window for it once it airs on Wednesday? Can I spoil?
I don't care.
Spoilers.
Spoil it. Look, it doesn't matter. Everyone saw it.
Leave the room.
Everyone saw it. I saw it, and I didn't even watch it.
I have not seen it. But I know that Arya Stark does not kill Daenerys, and I think that would have been a much better ending for everyone.
It would have been. But that was last episode. Like, that was the second to last episode, right? Are you 2 episodes behind?
I thought Daenerys got killed in this past episode. I thought that was the finale.
Oh, Daenerys. Sorry. Okay, I thought you were Cersei's. Yes, she got killed by Boulder.
That's Cersei. Yeah, that's Cersei. She had a
very anticlimactic ending, but powerful in the sense that her and Jaime were together. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from. Hopefully, all of the world will move on from that incestuous relationship, and we'll go back to the old days where we had relationships that involved brothers and sisters.
Yeah, we're back to clean relationships like cousins.
Anyway.
No, really, I don't know what ending people wanted, man. Like, sure, there are certain characters that might have been underused, like Arya, totally. Like, we got to see her change her face once.
Yeah. Yeah.
When that was, but that was too OP of an ability. Let's be honest here, folks. Like,
you know what I think is missing.
All of your problems with Arya.
Here's what I think is missing, right?
What, Arya? Can you change yourself as like Jaime and walk up to Cersei's? Okay, go. We'll sit back here in the north and wait.
The TV show didn't present a cost, right? So the nameless one, the unnamed, whatever his name was, he clearly had paid a cost for the ability to become other people, right?
Right.
Arya Stark didn't ever have to pay that cost in the TV show, and I think if I was writing the books, that ability should cost Arya Stark a lot, right? Like,
every time she does it,
or and you could tell that she had become much more cutthroat, far less sympathetic to other people.
But that was good.
Your soul, that. I mean, you give up a little piece of yourself when you kill people and you take on roles that way. And I don't think the TV show does a good job of presenting that high level of cost. Because there wasn't much magic in this world. And I feel like when you did do magic, it like the fire priestess,
the Red Lady.
The Red Lady, she clearly paid a huge cost
for magic,
to use her magic, and I think, and the guy who resurrected himself, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't right in the head by the end of the season.
No.
So I think they hinted at that, and Arya Stark because of who she was and how she was a beloved character. I don't think she paid the cost, and I hope George R. R. Martin adds a cost in the books to her breaking the promise.
That are different in the book to the show that I feel were different. Like a good example, one that I really wanted something and they totally didn't do, and they never did, which again, after the Red Wedding, you had Lady Stark. I mean, she was essentially
right Stoneheart, whatever. That's
I mean, that's a fun character that you could have really played with, but you didn't bother because you were too busy with 300 other characters that you had to write about.
Because they didn't know how successful they were going to be. I totally get that. I mean, they combined the Targaryens, right? There was a lot of things they had to do.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but there's just certain characters. Like, if you're going to make the story about the Starks, which they clearly did by the end of it.
In the last season, yeah.
Yeah, by the end of it. I mean, just having Lady Stark still around in some lich form was pretty neat, I think. Would have been really
cool.
I mean, there's just certain characters.
So anyway, I mean, what are we going to get? A spin-off series, sequels? Who cares?
I don't know. I feel, and again, without spoiling, which I will spoil because this is far into the future. But if you, everyone I know that watches our show has watched this show, or that is watching.
Except for me, I haven't watched it. But yeah.
The ending we got for Jon Snow was
right on.
Sad, fitting in a way, but definitely kind of shafted by the end of it all. He's definitely a character that you kind of, I guess, I don't know how to say it. He's your avatar through the whole thing. I mean, for most people, for a lot of people, he's that character where you're like, he's just been given a bum rap his entire life. Like, treated like the bastard, sent to the wall for no reason, comes back as the savior only to be shafted again by the end of it and thrown back to the wall. Like, oh, that's the condition, John. You have to go back to the wall. We get
Yeah,
to
I like to think that everyone watching the show either thinks of themselves as Tyrion or Jon Snow.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think to myself, all of you dumbasses are Samwell Tarlys. Like, get out of here.
Samuel was awesome though by the end of it.
By the end, but
Also, are we gonna not talk about the fact that he like proposed democracy? Did you see that?
I mean, I read it. I haven't seen the show, and I'm all like, oh, great. All right, who cares?
He proposes democracy, and everyone laughs at him.
Yeah, of course, because it's a dumb choice. For the show, for the world. Anyway, I mean, whatever. It doesn't. You know what? The song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah. Thus closes the book on a giant pop culture titan.
7, 8 years.
Exactly how anything pop culture ends in 2019, which is with rage and fury and internet materials. I just
we're all so mad all the time.
Can we not? This is a theme about this show, but I hate that it is. But we are in an age where no one is ever happy with what happens at the end of their version of the story. Even Endgame had people kind of complaining about certain characters, and that is about as perfect of an ending as you can get with this many characters. Game of Thrones was obviously not the perfect ending people wanted, but you didn't have a foundation. You had an outline from a
also, it's over. Like, God, it's so over.
Yes.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of ink spilled over the next 6 months over it. And then his Dark Materials, which is coming out soon, is going to be... It looks good, looks great, but it's got big shoes to fill. I feel like folks are going to...
Well, the advantage there, and again, if you're not familiar, the Dark Materials series is coming out, which by the way, guys, we've had a movie called The Golden Compass, which was terrible. And
we don't talk about The Golden Compass.
Right.
We don't talk about Shyamalan's Avatar. We don't talk about Golden Compass. Didn't you not read the list? Did you not get my memos?
No, but see, we have to talk about it for one reason. We have the footprint. We have the foundation and the blueprint of things we can't do and what you need to be successful for your own franchise. This is a second shot. You're getting a second shot at a franchise again. Mm-hmm. And you're doing it with a foundation of what not to do. Like, this is what you don't do. This is what makes your movie suck.
Take a great young adult series designed to make you think and dumb it down to be a kids movie. No, yeah, it's terrible. I mean, they did the same thing with the C.S. Lewis books. Those movies aren't very good because they needed to make giant Pirates of the Caribbean style spectacles that just go on forever and ever.
Right.
I'm excited for the TV series. HBO can really play around with it. I think they cast it perfectly. A lot of great cast choices.
McAvoy looks great in that role.
Everything about it looks fantastic. So I can't wait. But it does. I don't think anything. It's one of those lightning in a bottle moments. I don't know if it's gonna bring back everybody that wanted Game of Thrones, right? They
didn't name it Golden Compass.
Because it's his Dark Materials series, right? It's the whole series that they're going to do, and they do have the advantage of knowing how it's going to end. That's a big advantage,
right? Which is again, yeah. I think that's having a beginning and an end, and you know how to fill in the gap between them.
And you can plan out your whole thing, assuming you get all the time you need from HBO, and HBO is really great in that they can give them the time they need. Yeah. So it's exciting. It's exciting times 20 years after Phantom Menace and The Matrix for us nerds. Who would have thought, right? 99?
That's the bookends that I want to talk about. That we've got 20 years ago, Matrix, Phantom Menace, the geekdom is like hush, but like pop culture, big budget. Now we're fighting over miniseries on HBO and like what the next big geek. Westworld season 3 is coming out, and everyone's excited about that. And
that's right, yeah.
You had a couple of other things. Like you had HBO has been like, here we are, HBO.
HBO has become the Sci-Fi channel.
Right, it's the channel.
Doesn't make any sense.
Sci-Fi channel, Sharknado.
Do they even show movies anymore? I don't even know
anymore, man. Guys, I think that's it. But again, we're 30 episodes in, and we're 20 years since Phantom Menace, and we've got a lot of things to share with our kids, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's good stuff. I can't wait to run this D&D Essentials game for R. She's gonna flip her
I'm
lid.
gonna pick it up. If you've got rules for 2-player, I want to see if I can maybe play with my boys.
It's like adjusted for 2-player, and it can tell you how to run it for one singular person. That's an interesting endeavor.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's basically just storytelling going back and forth, right? It's gonna be kind of cool.
Yep.
I can dig it.
All right, guys. Like, subscribe, enjoy.
Bada bing, bada boom.
You know the deals. Share, comment. Let's talk, guys. Episode 30 in the can.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good one, guys.